The same administration that weaponized the IRS against conservative groups, it has come to light now that they were also using the national security establishment against the Trump campaign. Susan Rice, who famously came out on Sunday talk shows explaining that Benghazi, which happened on September 11th, I believe it was 2012, said that Benghazi was a result of a video. Not to mention how offensive it is that we talk down to Muslims in the Middle East so much that we expect that a video would cause them to kill an ambassador, to try to kill everybody in a CIA annex. Susan Rice, the former national security advisor under former President Barack Obama, requested to unmask the names of Donald Trump transition officials caught up in surveillance. So there was an effort to prove whether Donald Trump was in contact with Russians, or I don't know where they got this idea, but it seems to have stuck. And Susan Rice used the national security establishment to find political opposition intelligence against the current president of the United States. So do you guys remember when you needed a court order and a wiretap in order to get this kind of information? Now the Democrat president can use the CIA and the NSA to go after the opposition party. Now it has become clear to me why Susan Rice was chosen for her job. She's basically a liberal hack that will do anything that the president wants her to do. She kind of knows what to do based on what Donald Trump would want, what Barack Obama would want her to do in the circumstances. Now, when the names of Americans do come up in surveillance, and I assume the surveillance is extremely more widespread than you can imagine, but when the American names do come up, the protocol, quote unquote, the protocol is that the Americans' names are unmasked because you're supposed to need some kind of warrant. I don't know if it's a FISA warrant or what, some type of a warrant to find out what that person's name is. So they're supposed to be unmasked, and it appears that it seems like if Susan Rice knew what the names of the people were in the Trump organization, then Barack Obama would know. Now this all comes in the wake of a television interview on MSNBC of Evelyn Farkas, who came out and just basically said, "I was urging my former colleagues, and frankly speaking, the people on the Hill, to get as much information as you can, get as much intelligence as you can before President Obama leaves the administration." Now Nunes, who is the head of I believe it's the House Intelligence Committee, kind of got the ball rolling on this. Now if you're at all like me, you're probably thinking, well, how the hell did Donald Trump win? I mean, he had the national security establishment monitoring his every move. He was fighting against the Republican establishment, and he still managed to eke out a victory, an electoral landslide. If not, he obviously did not win the popular vote, which is only useful in semantics. So think about the level of corruption that Barack Obama has engaged in, using his intelligence establishment against his political opponents, using the IRS to audit his political opponents. We know that Donald Trump was under audit. It's probably quite routine for wealthy people to be under audit, but who knows? I mean, he was using the IRS to go after any group that had constitutional in it, any group that had any kind of a conservative lean was audited, and this was used to influence the outcome of the election. So there's a clear juxtaposition here. You have the Democrats that are trying to find Russian fingerprints on the election, and then on the other hand, you have actual American liberal fingerprints, and it was ineffectual because the American people were so tired of the Obama administration, and they had zero interest in electing Hillary Clinton, who got to win the nomination, her party's nomination, through cheating, through inside dealing, through, smoke-filled room type deals. So the question is, who hacked the election? I mean, just because Trump was successful, it seems like Barack Obama was trying to hack the election more than the Russians. They still don't have any evidence. They have evidence of Barack Obama still trying to influence the current president of the United States through his contacts in the CIA and in the NSA. It seems like the New York Times, Politico, they know about things before Donald Trump does. And keep in mind that Barack Obama has Valerie Jarrett in his house, who used to lead his political operations. Now, here is Evelyn Farkas on MSNBC and what she said about surveillance of Donald Trump transition officials.
Question for you.
Yeah, I think I agree 100% with Senator Stabenow, which is always a smart move. But I think I agree that, first of all, this president, I mean, when you are president, the American people deserve to know whether you are acting 100% in their interest and not in your interest. And if there are questions about whether he received money from Russians to help bail him out of debt, because that's at the heart of all of this, did he receive some money from Russians who were close to the Kremlin? And he's hiding that because they influenced him somehow. The American people deserve to know, and he should have on day one. You've said this before. He should have said, I want to get to the bottom of this. I want the cloud to be dispelled. Let's put it all out there. Now there's going to have to be a big investigation. I don't think Congress can handle it, frankly speaking, because I think it's going to be too hot for the Republicans, especially in the House, and they're going to have to do a 9/11 type commission.
I found, Willie, Ted Cruz's sort of dismissal of this to be kind of striking, especially given his background.
Well, he said the meeting was a nothing burger, but there's no way of knowing if it is a nothing burger.
I
don't know what happened inside the meeting, and neither does Senator Cruz, I suspect. Senator Stabenow, as you put the pieces together now, all this information we've learned, not just today, but over the last months and even the last year, what is your suspicion? Do you believe that the Trump campaign colluded with the Russian government to make Donald Trump president?
Well, that's one of the big questions to answer. And really, I will say, based on published reports that we all know, that it's very clear that there were communications going on, that Russia's main goal, first of all, is to disrupt democracies around the world. They hit the mother lode when it was the United States, and then they figured out, my gosh, we could actually maybe affect this election.
Now, I don't know if it was a goal of the Obama administration to disrupt democracy, but it seems to be that that is the effect.
But I think even bigger is the fact that it's follow the money, right? It's follow the money, and the fact that he won't release his tax returns, that we have all kinds of information about business interests, investment interests, when he couldn't get financing because of his bankruptcies in the United States, all kinds of public information.
I think it's clear that they're reaching.
Information about Russian oligarchs and connections with who knows who.
Yeah.
And so the simplest thing to me, if there's
books.
nothing there, then show us the tax returns.
All right.
Show us where the money is.
The Democrats want this president to be under constant investigation, and they will reach to find anything on him. They don't have anything, but they're looking, and it's kind of sad because if you think about it, it's the Democrats are throwing these accusations out, and it's become the Republicans' job to dispel them. And it's like when you accuse somebody of being a liar, you say you're a liar, and that individual has to say I'm not a liar, and they already kind of look guilty because they're saying that they're not doing something. The accusation itself has merit, and less merit as they continue to try to find anything. Like you said, they need to put all the money out on the table. There's a possibility that Donald Trump did something, but they don't know what. I mean, if you don't have any evidence of anything, then why should Donald Trump have to disclose his financials?
Senator Debbie Stabenow, thank you very much.
Thanks, Senator.
And then Evelyn Farkas, the other big story of the day. You actually knew about this attempt to get and preserve information, and full transparency, we're doing some work yourself. Tell us about that.
Well, I was urging my former colleagues and frankly speaking, the people on the Hill. It was more actually aimed at telling the Hill people, get as much information as you can, get as much intelligence as you can before President Obama leaves the administration, because I had a fear that somehow that information would disappear with the senior people who left. So it would be hidden away in the bureaucracy, that the Trump folks, if they found out how we knew what we knew about the Trump staff's dealing with Russians, that they would try to compromise those sources and methods, meaning we would no longer have access to that intelligence. So I became very worried.
Now, just allow that to sink in. If she for a second had any information about anything to do with Russians, she would say what it is. All she's saying now is she's actually admitting that she had knowledge of Donald Trump's team being surveilled by the United States government. One government controlled by a Democrat president surveilling a Republican nominee for president of the United States.
Because not enough was coming out into the open, and I knew that there was more. We have very good intelligence on Russia. So then I had talked to some of my former colleagues, and I knew that they were trying to also help get information to the Hill.
A lot going on today.
Yeah.
Mark
That's why you have the leaking.
Exactly.
People are worried.
All right, put it in 10 seconds, Mark Halp.
And she also says that's why you have leaking. So she's clearly a Democrat operative who has been in contact with people in the government leaking illegally, highly illegally. It's a felony to leak confidential information. She's probably talked to these people. If I'm the chairman of the House Foreign Intelligence Committee, I want to subpoena that woman, Evelyn Farkas, because she clearly has intelligence about who's doing these leaks. And for some reason, she went on TV to talk about it. I don't know why, because it makes her look very subpoenaable. Now, I want to go back to the American people's relationship now with Susan Rice, because it started bad and it just continues to be bad. She appears to be a tool, a kind of a nefarious tool of the Obama administration, when Obama didn't want to get his hands dirty, he employed people like Mrs. Clinton, like Susan Rice. So after Benghazi, Susan Rice had to go on 5 different Sunday talk shows to explain how if you make a really hateful video about the Muslims' prophet, how they just spontaneously grab whatever rocket launchers and machine guns they have laying around, and they go after the closest CIA annex that they can find.
See sustained instability. Does the administration expect to see these sorts of protests outside U.S. embassies and elsewhere throughout the fall?
Well, Candy, first of all, let's recall what has happened in the last several days. There was a hateful video that was disseminated on the internet. It had nothing to do with the United States government, and it's one that we find disgusting and reprehensible. It's been offensive to many, many people around the world. That sparked violence in various parts of the world, including violence directed against Western facilities, including our embassies and consulates. That violence is absolutely unacceptable. It's not a response that one can ever condone when it comes to such a video. And we've been working very closely and indeed effectively with the
completely spontaneous on September 11th, 2013, I believe it is. Let's see, let me just check that. So it's a response to a video. Happened to be a anniversary of the United States losing many thousands of Americans, and our 2 buildings in New York, and the attack on Pentagon and the airliner that was downed in Pennsylvania, is a spontaneous reaction to a video.
governments in the region and around the world to secure our personnel, secure our embassy, condemn the violent response to this video. And frankly, we've seen these sorts of incidents in the past. We've seen violent responses to satanic verses. We've seen violent responses to the cartoons depicting the Prophet Muhammad in an evil way. So this is something we've seen in the past, and we expect that it's possible that these kinds of things could percolate into the future. What we're focused on is securing our personnel, securing our facilities.
Do you at this moment feel that U.S. embassies abroad are secure?
We're doing our utmost to secure our facilities and our personnel in various vulnerable places. We have demanded and we are receiving the cooperation of host governments. Host governments have also put out very strong messages in Libya, in Egypt, in Yemen, in Tunisia, condemning violence, saying that it's a completely unacceptable response to such a video. And we feel that we are now in a position doing the math.
But let's be clear, it was a response to a video, and we are dealing with crazed Muslims in the Middle East, so what else can we expect but if you draw a stick figure and you point an arrow to it, say it's Muhammad, that they will just grab whatever weaponry they happen to. They don't have enough food to eat, and they're very poor, but they have lots of rocket launchers. Now, Fox News is reporting that Susan Rice requested to have names unmasked, ostensibly with the purpose of forwarding these to her bosses in the White House. So if there's anything juicy going on with the Donald, Obama knows, and then she can just tell Hillary Clinton. The Russians are not democratic. They don't vote for their leaders, but we do. And it seems like the harm to democracy is coming from the previous president of the United States, maybe even more than Putin. And here's his Susan Rice denying the allegations.
Security advisor Susan Rice, the author of that piece. It was her first interview since leaving the White House. I began by asking about the allegations leveled today by House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes that Trump transition officials, including the president, may have been swept up in surveillance of foreigners at the end of the Obama administration.
I know nothing about this. I was surprised to see reports from Chairman Nunes on that count today. I mean, let's back up and recall where we have been. The President of the United States accused his predecessor, President Obama, of wiretapping Trump Tower during the campaign. Nothing of the sort occurred, and we've heard that confirmed by the director of the FBI, who also pointed out that no president, no White House.
Starting to sound more and more like Donald Trump had his wires tapped.
Can order the surveillance of another American citizen. That can only come from the Justice Department with the approval of a FISA court. So today, I really don't know to what Chairman Nunes was referring, but he said that whatever he was referring to was a legal, lawful
surveillance of the Donald Trump campaign can occur with approval of a FISA court, which we have to ask, have they ever turned down a request? Or it could also be from the approval of a Hillary Clinton campaign official. So all you have to do is stamp HRC on the FISA request, and so we know exactly what's going on with the Trump campaign.
Surveillance, and that it was potentially incidental collection on American citizens. And I think it's important for people to understand what incidental means. That means that the target was either a foreign entity or somebody under criminal investigation, and that the Americans who were talking to those targets may have been picked up.
Well, I wanted to ask you about this because, as you also know, in the last few weeks...
Now, if I'm a liberal hack, I'm going to pick targets that are foreign individuals that Donald Trump officials routinely talk to. If I was a liberal hack inside of the Obama White House, I would pick anybody that Donald Trump is calling overseas. For instance, Nigel Farage, leader of the Brexit and leader of UKIP and the Brexit movement. As long as they're a foreign person, the FISA court, I believe, would just okay that, or if you even need a FISA court, I doubt you do if it's a foreign person.
The New York Times has reported that in the final days of the Obama administration, individuals went out of their way to spread information throughout the government about what they knew about intelligence that the Russians had interfered in the election last year, and that there may have been a connection with Trump campaign officials. So that story's now been out there for several weeks. Could there be a connection here?
I'm not aware of any connection. I had read the New York Times story. I must say, Judy, as one of the most senior White House officials and the most senior responsible for national security, I found that report a bit perplexing. I was not aware of any orders given to disseminate that kind of information.
Well,
so I have no idea whether that was the case. But the fact is that the president did request back in December, the intelligence community compile all of the information that it had on what had transpired during the campaign with respect to the Russians involving themselves in the presidential campaign. And that report was provided to the American people and provided
as cover for the Hillary Rodham Clinton campaign to spy on the Donald, who won anyway.
Classified form into Congress in classified form in early January.
And was there a concern, though, inside the Obama administration, inside the White House, that the new Trump administration might not follow up on that intelligence that had been gathered?
I don't think that was the concern, because to the extent that there was any need to follow up, it wouldn't be done necessarily by the White House, but by the intelligence community and by the Justice Department if appropriate. I think our interest was, and the president's direction was, let us make sure that we have compiled and put together in one place all the information that we have, so that it is there for the new administration, it's there for the American people, and there for Congress to utilize as they see fit.
Well, that brings us to the opinion piece that you wrote that appeared today in the Washington Post, Ambassador Rice, in which what you describe as a pattern of false statements from this president could jeopardize the national security of this country. That's a serious charge. What did you mean by that?
Well, let me explain, Judy. I think the American people know that over the last weeks of the administration, it's now been almost exactly 2 months, we've heard a number of striking and actually patently misleading statements from not only the president, but also from his principal spokespersons. And those statements are heard and digested by the rest of the world, whether they are our friends or our adversaries. The Wall Street Journal made a very similar point today on its...
So the coming from the administration that got Ambassador Stevens killed and dragged through the street in Libya, it's pretty rich to hear her talk about Donald Trump threatening national security not even 100 days into his term. Barack Obama paid actual bribes to Iran, a state sponsor of terror responsible for the murdering of U.S. soldiers in Iraq. I mean, just coming from this lady, it is just rich. They had more than 24 hours to respond to requests for help in the CIA annex in Benghazi. Barack Obama was off playing golf somewhere. It's like the only period in his term that you don't know exactly where he is. It's ridiculous. Now, it is also becoming clear that with the accusation against Susan Rice that she requested for the unmasking of Donald Trump officials for political gain, she's also using this opportunity to criticize the Trump presidency. He's not even in his first 100 days. Barack Obama has decided when he's not sleeping with Richard Branson in private islands. Just kidding. I don't know if he's actually doing that, but I think he is on a private island. But when he's not on a private island, he's in D.C. Valerie Jarrett's in his house. So it's becoming clear that the former president of the United States is going to and is influencing the Donald Trump presidency right now, and using contacts that he gained as president in the national security establishment to undermine Donald Trump. And it's backfiring a little bit, because it is becoming clear that, in fact, Donald Trump did have his wires tapped.
The Wall Street Journal made a very similar point today on its editorial page. And the point is this. The United States today on its editorial page. And the point is this. The United States of America is the leading power in the world. Our friends and our adversaries respect us in large measure because they know that we are steady, we are fact-based, we are serious. And when we have the White House of the United States putting out information that everybody can see to be inaccurate, if not deliberately false. It shakes the credibility and the confidence of our allies, and it lends doubt to our adversaries who may miscalculate, and it undermines the confidence of the American people in what comes out of the White House, which is very detrimental in the event we have a national crisis and we need to rally around the flag.
But just to play devil's advocate for a moment, how do you, or how does anyone else know, though, that this is just not the rough beginning, rocky beginning of a new administration, and that other countries can see through mistakes, whatever you want to call them, statements, and they're looking at the overall picture, and U.S. national security is not really at
Well, Judy,
in jeopardy.
I think if it were one or two such statements and then they were corrected when the facts were plain, that would be one thing. But we've had statements ranging from the allegation that 3 to 5 million illegal immigrants voted in our elections, which has been debunked on a bipartisan basis by members of Congress, to this allegation that we've already discussed, which was quite shocking, that the president's predecessor, President Obama, had illegally wiretapped his office building.
And she was asking, and she was responsible for the actual wiretapping. So it's become clear that the Donald Trump campaign was surveilled, and then you have actual hacks like Susan Rice coming out and saying that no, he wasn't wiretapped, but it's coming out that Nunes has the documents to prove it, and it's becoming more and more difficult to disprove what Donald said. And I've said this before, that when Donald Trump tweets, sometimes it's horse shit, but there's usually a little bit of truth in there. So it sounds like the wiretapping tweet, there's a lot of truth. The 3 to 5 million illegals, maybe it's 1 million. But there's probably truth in that tweet as well. Now remember, he's a hyperbolic New Yorker. He's going to say things, it's like when someone is slandering him a little bit or saying something negative about it, he'll say like the New York Times is killing me with their bluff. It's just the way that he expresses himself. He's in a lot of ways very effeminate, but so is Obama. So it's becoming clear to me that there's been a concerted effort by the previous administration to, even before the current administration came into power, to undermine Donald Trump's transition effort. They're currently trying to undermine his picks. They're trying to throw everything at him and see if something sticks. So just a quick programming note. I'm not going to be here next 2 weeks. Usually I do my podcast every Monday evening, but I'm going on vacation with Edison Danger to, we're going to Taiwan, so I won't be able to do my podcast from Taiwan. So it'll be about a month. See, it would be, my next podcast will be it should be May 13th, I believe. So I want to thank you guys for listening to Jeff Danger Radio. I'm Jeff Danger. My producer is Edison Danger. Head of female outreach is MK Ultra, and my content producer is Alex Danger. So thank you so much for listening to Jeff Danger Radio. I'll see you in about a month.